Welcome to the virtual church of the disillusioned. My name is Jack Allen Willard. Our short video is entitled, Would Vladimir Putin have invaded the Ukraine if Donald Trump had won re-election? The answer? Absolutely not. When you think of all the devastation, all the horrific killings, people having to flee their homes and go to Poland, Hungary, other places, when you think of all the devastation that has happened, I'm recording this in mid-March of 2022. We don't know if we're on the verge of World War III. There have been conflicts before. Certainly Vladimir Putin has done horrible things in the past, but nothing to this degree. And if Donald Trump had been reelected in 2020, none of this would have been happening. None of it. Vladimir Putin made it clear early on that he had a lot of praise for Donald Trump. It began well before Trump's actual election in 2016. Putin said he wanted Trump to win. He was asked about this. Did you want Donald Trump to win the election? And he said, yes, I wanted him to win because he expressed a desire to get along with Russia, to get along. Trump said this many times. I think it's a good idea if we can get along with Russia. We're talking about a superpower that has the most nuclear weapons. Why not try to get along? George W. Bush did the same thing. He had words of praise for Vladimir Putin. But Trump is a businessman, and he approached the presidency like that. And he felt that it would be a good idea if he could have a good relationship with Vladimir Putin. That doesn't mean that he didn't have his guard up. Trump is very good at noticing when people are trying to take advantage of him, and he spoke up against it. He even imposed sanctions on Russia during his presidency. But yeah, there's no doubt. Putin called Trump a very bright person, talented, without any doubt. He commented on how well Trump had done in his first year in the presidency. Now, some would say it's as simple as one scoundrel loves another scoundrel. There's certainly the scoundrel side of Donald Trump. I'm certainly not one of those conservative voters that would try to paint Donald Trump as a flawless patron saint, you know. But people in 2015 had enough of the status quo, the Hillary Clinton type of politicians. They had had enough. They wanted something completely different. They also knew that we had this group called the Squad, and they were the leaders of the progressive extremists in this country that have now overtaken the Democratic Party, and their ideas are bad for America. They don't want to represent their constituents. They have their own little agenda, a lot of wild ideas guaranteed to bankrupt America, and also to take away the individual rights of Americans. And yet people have voted for them. People have voted for treacherous governors in Oregon and Wisconsin and Michigan. It's just amazing. It's amazing that someone like Omar could become a United States Congresswoman with her ideas and her hatred for Jewish people, her lack of respect for America. This woman is a U.S. Congresswoman. She's being challenged now and by a guy who seems very, very competent, and I hope he gets elected. And then we have AOC. Um, when Donald Trump came into office, hey, it's very simple. He actually went about doing the agenda that he promised the American people he would do. He started to hold China and France and Canada and other countries accountable for the serious unfair trade issues. He knew that these countries weren't paying their fair share, and he set out to change that in his very frank, often mean-spirited way. But he set out to change this, and yes, he was able to take his negotiation ability, his ability to work a deal and bring it to the presidency. He was really rough around the edges when he came into the presidency in 2016, but by 2019 he really had a handle on things. He had brought gas prices down as low as $1.99 a gallon in the South. It was $2 something here in upstate New York, a little more I'm sure in California, but we had became energy sufficient under Donald Trump. And we were exporting petroleum. Everything was good, and he wasn't shutting out those who were concerned about climate change. He wasn't leading the pack, but he was certainly not coming against clean air, clean water. He was not against solar, is not against solar, but he was practical. You cannot wage war on the oil field companies. You cannot make life a living hell for them and not cause a complete breakdown in the economy of the United States. So yes, he said he wanted a wall. He wanted to build a wall, and he was able to start building that wall. He wouldn't take no for an answer. Now, as a Christian, I have to say this. Christians are required to care about suffering children, suffering women and children, suffering families. If you're being terrorized in a place like Juarez, Mexico, it's perfectly understandable that you're going to want to try to get to America to escape the cartels. You probably have to pay them off to escape. That's what's been happening, certainly. To find a better, safer life for your family. And I think that we have to have compassion. The problem is we have NATO countries that stand with us in terms of fighting, but they don't want to take in people from places like Mexico. They don't. Poland has been stepping up to take the Ukrainians in. Hungary has, but they weren't looking to take immigrants from Mexico into their country. It would never happen in Poland. You and I both know that. And we, since we border Mexico, obviously they're going to want to come here, the land of the free and the home of the brave, even though with today's progressives, every day they are taking away freedom. Everybody thought, well, Joe Biden won't be that terrible. We know Joe Biden, he's been there forever. But he quickly became, first of all, he said and did whatever he had to do to win the election. And then he quickly became a puppet of the progressive extremist and crazy Nancy Pelosi. I call her the cadaver with a hammer. You know, the gavel, the cadaver with a hammer. She is soulless to me, as fake can be. and I never thought that she would join forces with the squad in hurting America the way she has. Here's a woman who is for partial birth abortion, but she says she's going to run for another term, even though she's 81, for the children that you don't mind seeing murdered in the womb, those kind of children. That would be like Jeffrey Epstein running a daycare, you know. Forget it. There's no sense to that. But if we really look at this closely, we see that Vladimir Putin was enamored by Donald Trump long before he ever took the ride down the escalator and said he was going to run for the presidency of the United States. He saw the empire that Trump built, Trump casinos in Vegas and in Atlantic City, and Trump Towers and Trump Properties, golf courses, luxury resorts, hotels everywhere, including Washington, D.C. He saw all this, and he respected Donald Trump. He fantasized about him being a Donald Trump type in Russia, and he would never have invaded Ukraine. First of all, he knew that Trump could be a mean SOB. He knew that he had a crazy side too, and he wanted to be approved by Trump. He wanted Trump to like him. He was willing to do a deal. Now, did Vladimir Putin interfere in the 2016 election? Bill Barr says that he did. Others have said that he did, and I believe that's true, but not to the degree that he changed the outcome. Not to the degree that he gave the election to Trump, but obviously there was all kind of damaging information about Hillary that came out late. We know about that. We're not going to go into that now, but people were ready for a change. They were ready to roll the dice and get someone, an outsider, who, although he wasn't, like a blue-collar working man, he was able to convince them that he really cared about them, that he was going to put America first, and that he was going to make their lives better, and he accomplished that in many, many ways. That doesn't mean that he was always saying the right things or doing the right things. He did grow in the presidency, but I'm well aware of the flaws of Donald Trump. He would never have been my first choice, but compared to Hillary, who we already knew her past, and with the squad and the other progressive extremists looming, we wanted someone who would put America first and actually do what he said he would do as he ran for the office, and Donald Trump did that. He did that. And even in the second election, over 75 million people voted for him again. Was there fraud in the 2020 election? Well, there were definitely shenanigans going on. But I accept what Bill Barr said. He said not enough to change the outcome. Biden was going to squeak through. And what did he do? And what did Vladimir Putin and Xi from China and other world leaders see? Iran, Iraq. What did they see in Joe Biden? They saw a old man, very indecisive, in cognitive decline. They saw someone who was stupid enough to put a totally unqualified woman in office as the vice president of the United States. Someone who ambushed him in the debate, trying to infer that he was a racist once upon a time. Someone who would later support the woman who accused Joe Biden of having sexually accosted her years back, putting his hand up her dress. She said she believed that woman. She believed that woman. And yet Joe picked her to be his vice presidential running mate, and now she is the vice president. As of this video, she is the vice president of the United States. This is a woman who ended her presidential campaign very early on because she could see that people in general loathe her. They have no respect for her. Tulsi Gabbard, the former congresswoman from Ohio, who's brilliant. I wish she would be in office right now. She would have made a far better vice presidential candidate, or even a presidential candidate. She gave us, she painted a beautiful portrait of exactly who Kamala Harris was in that same debate when Kamala went after Joe, and Kamala was totally unprepared for that attack. But she let us know who she was as a prosecutor, who she was as a senator. She showed us that Kamala is a shallow opportunist who didn't mind keeping black people in prison longer than they had to be, because after all, LA County needed a workforce out there of prisoners. And so even if it was time for them to be released, she would find a way to keep them in there longer, arrest people on marijuana charges and have them do real time and what have you. She showed us who Kamala was, and I'm very thankful to Tulsi Gabbard. But now, here we are, one heartbeat away from the presidency is Kamala Harris. And Vladimir Putin and President Xi and others, Saudi Arabia, all saw what happened in Afghanistan. They saw how weak we looked. They saw President Biden promising to get everybody out and stay until everybody was out, and then we abandoned people that couldn't get to the airport. Our soldiers were literally behind a brick wall at the airport and wouldn't come out to confront the soldiers and get the people in. Atrocities were happening right outside the airport, and our soldiers stayed inside. The babies were lifted over the wall that the American soldiers took. We looked foolish. We looked weak. Putin saw this was the perfect time to fulfill his dream to restore the Soviet Union, starting with the Ukraine. There was never going to be a better time. He would have done this for George W. Bush. He wouldn't have done it for Barack Obama, I don't believe. And he certainly wouldn't have done it with Donald Trump being in the Oval Office. But this was the time. So the answer is clear. If Donald Trump had been reelected to the presidency in 2020, the Ukraine invasion would have never happened.